Hey, I want to talk to you about Bitcoin mining and energy usage, um, and how Bitcoin mining could possibly bring the cost of electricity, energy, to zero or under, which is pretty wild to think about. So I posted this the other day. This is a oil company, drills for oil. When they do that, there's a flare gas, right, which is this byproduct of drilling for the oil, and they usually just burn it off. So they just burn it, and the reason they burn it, maybe they use a little bit of it to power their operations, but there's excess. There's way too much, and they have to burn it, even though it can be used to generate electricity. And the reason is it's too far from, like, the oil they can put in a barrel, right? They can put it in a truck and they can take places, but this electricity would need to be sent in a cable, and you get voltage drop over a certain distance. So it's not worth it to send it to a city or something, because by the time it gets there over the cable, it won't be strong enough to really do anything, right? So it's voltage drop, and there's a lot of stranded energy all around the world because of this. Because like, even if we had the biggest, best, thickest cable in the world, it would just drop off over time, and it would never get anywhere. So yeah, so now I'm going to talk about Bitcoin mining for a sec. There's kind of a game theory built into Bitcoin mining, where if you were mining Bitcoin in a house in Australia, say, you have to buy the Bitcoin miner, you plug it into your electricity, so you've got the upfront cost of the machine, and you've got to pay your power bill. And the power cost here is some of the highest in the world. So you would, if you really crunch the numbers, it makes more sense to spend the upfront money you were going to spend on the Bitcoin miner on just buying Bitcoin, and then after that, the money you're going to spend on electricity, just buy Bitcoin with that. It just would work out better because of the cost of the electricity. So this game theory pushes Bitcoin miners to look for stranded energy or cheap energy. Now, in the case of this flare gas, it's like the most stranded, and it's just sitting there, right? Whereas in the case of, like, you could say that, like, all of the potential energy coming from the sun is stranded energy. We've got deserts. We could have solar farms in the desert, but it'd be too far to pump the electricity to a city, right? And that's stranded. So the infrastructure cost of setting up the solar farm is a lot to capture that energy. And in the case of, say, in the ocean or a river or somewhere, a hydro dam or hydro or wave energy, a lot of infrastructure setup. And that's not to say that might be good in the future. It probably will be, but this is just sitting there ready to go, right? It's just already being produced by mining, like oil drilling, which already isn't good for the environment, but it has this byproduct. It's just sitting there ready to go. So that's where Bitcoin mining has gravitated. It's the freest, right? And there's no infrastructure required. It's just coming out of the ground, ready to go. The crazy thing is here that this company has been approached by a third party that, now I don't know whether they're just that selling them the energy, or just how they're leasing it, or whether this third party's just doing it and then they're giving them a percentage of the Bitcoin. But it's at no risk to this company. They've got this third party in, they're doing everything, and they just get free money. They just get free money. They don't have to do anything. So I can see, like, why wouldn't every company in the world do that that's similar to these guys, right? Every place that's drilling for oil, everywhere that has this flare gas, why wouldn't they get this third party to do it for them? It's just free money. And there's a lot of other industries around the world that have stranded energy. It's a byproduct of what they're doing. And these third parties can work anywhere. And it's just free money. So I think this will catch on as quickly as it can. And there's no reason why it wouldn't. Also, like third parties, think about your residential house, like solar on the roof. When you're not home during the day, you're at work or whatever, and there's all this solar energy being created. It gets sent back to the grid, but that causes problems with the grid in a lot of cases, more often than not. So why couldn't there be a small Bitcoin miner in each house, and every time there's excess energy that's being wasted or sent back to the grid, this little miner just ticks on and stores it long term, holds its value, even increases in value over time, so you can re-spend that later on. So storing that digital energy, right? So they're getting, so you don't need the cable in this case to reuse that energy everywhere else in the world. Setting up the miners, you're mining that energy and you're storing that energy digitally. Now, when it's stored digitally, it doesn't erode over time like a battery. You store it in a battery, and the battery goes flat even if you don't use it, right? You send it in a cable, it diminishes as it gets sent in the cable. You store it digitally, and it at least holds its value, and it's currently appreciating at 150% a year in value. It's doing the opposite. It's not eroding, it's growing in value. You're getting more to spend later, right? Now, so that in your house example could subsidize your own electricity bill. So just say you mine, say, for 5 years, or you mine for 5 or 10 years, or 3 years, any amount of time, you leave it, and after that 3 years is up, or whatever, you can start, because it's appreciated, say, on average 150% a year, you can then start using a small percentage of that Bitcoin and sell it to subsidize your house electricity bill, right? So once you've let a bit accrue and it's risen in value and you're accruing it, then say if it's 150% a year, that first year, you've got an extra, just say it was 100 kilowatts or whatever that you mined with, you've nearly got 150 to use, right? So over time you have more and more and more. So if you leave it for years and then start selling a little bit of it, you can subsidize your own electricity bill, and after a certain amount of time, depending on how big your solar setup is, you might even be able to cover the whole cost of your electricity bill. And with us transitioning from coal-fired power plants and things to solar and maybe nuclear or whatever, energy is getting a lot cheaper over time, and we're transitioning to a more sustainable and hopefully cheaper energy. So it's not too hard to conceive that the cost of energy could be free at some point, and possibly be more than free, depending on your setup, right? And in the case of these big companies that are sort of drilling for oil is a pretty gross example, right? It's not hopefully that's not going to be around for long. But in the case of other companies that have trapped energy as well, they can use that to make their electricity cheaper and or free using the same method I just outlined. Pretty crazy to think about. So I know it's hard to kind of get your head around digital energy and how, so you can just mine the Bitcoin with this flare gas and then go back into the city and use it again, right? Or spend it. You can buy a car with it, because there's an amount of joules, amount of energy that went into making that car. So you've kind of it's a good way to think about it. Now the energy still has to be generated in, say, Brisbane City. We might have solar, or we've got coal-fire power plants and stuff. So that wasted energy, that was captured wasted energy, is then being redeemed somewhere where it may not be it might be just a normal power plant, right? Even though you're redeeming it over there, and it's not the same energy that you mined with, that you're then spending in the future. That doesn't matter. It's not, but that doesn't matter. It subsidizes that other energy, the cost of that other energy, and And hopefully, as we're transitioning to more of a more green production of energy, it should be much for muchness, right? Anyway, yeah, think about that. Think about that. Yeah, that's pretty wild, and I think this first place has done it. I don't think it's going to be long before everyone is doing it. Like, every bit of flare gas in the world, right? And yeah, every bit of stranded energy everywhere. Peace.